flower.
I did hear that.
You don't need the permission if you've got the power. And everybody knows that we're living in a death cult, but nobody wants to talk about what you should do if you're living in a death cult.
It's the worst kind of cult.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean,
Probably.
honestly, I know you're trying your best, but you're not convincing me that everything is great.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's AI. Is that? Or we don't know.
No, I think it's real, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Yeah, I have no idea. Maybe
Yeah,
the song
they're touring.
is real.
They're touring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because this is like an interesting thing I was thinking about. Was like that song, that what you just played. I'm like, I really liked it, but then afterwards, I was like, was this AI? And I don't really know. And if it is AI, then that will influence how much I like it or not.
Sure.
Sure. And then thinking about that, and thinking that's interesting how, if we were to say, take that example and apply it to something else, we'd be like, well, that's what bigotry is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I just think it's kind of interesting how at some point, let's say 20 or 40 or years from now, or maybe even sooner, you're going to have a lot of people that when we say that, we're like, oh, well, that's AI. I don't like that song as much as that Dillinger Escape Plan song,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's very similar. And if you're, let's say 10 to 20 years from now, we asked one of our kids, which song do you like better? And they picked the AI song.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, come on, how can you feel that way? This AI is the ripoff of the real thing, which is something that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Those of us who are musicians and artists, we were like, people get into, say, like new metal,
Mm-hmm.
new metal in the late 90s, early 2000s, this shitty wave of metal that, completely ripped off of, like Mike Patton and his approach, or the Faith No More kind of thing that, but most of those people that got into the new metal, they probably didn't really know Faith No More. And when they were into those bands, it's like, all right, but like, this is just the derivative ripoff shit that stole from that. Come on. Like the real thing is the original is better.
Yeah.
It's like such a basic principle, or I guess that's what Jack Kruse talks about with the first principle thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
Getting into the people that really created the idea, as opposed to the people that just hopped on a bandwagon and helped popularize something, and then they receive a lot of the credit in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And the ability to tell the difference is, whatever. Like that's why, I'm a little bit older than you, and
Mm-hmm.
something like me and Frau, sometimes me, Frau, and Stav, like, are one of our favorite disagreements that is over Linkin Park.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't get into Linkin Park,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if I was younger, I could have seen myself maybe getting into Linkin Park, right? Because I would have been young enough, I wouldn't have known what it was ripping off from, and I didn't know what it was doing, like a watered down, like soulless version of,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I would have just fell for it. And because I have some friends that are a little older than me that are, whatever, musicians and artists, and there are certain bands that, they'll shit on that I'll like, whatever. Like I was talking to my buddy, that guy who's sound, my buddy that we played shows with before, and the guy that like sounds a lot like Mike Patton.
Yeah.
And one, maybe a few weeks ago I was talking to him, and he was basically saying that he's a guy that's, I don't know, let's say he's like 3 to 5 years older than me, and that can be enough, to not to know enough of the historical context and what came before, that when something comes out that's very derivative or rips off of, that it turns them off. But I was ignorant enough, so I got into the ripoff.
Yeah.
And I mean, I personally would argue he takes it a little too far, because he's like, oh, fucking that 90s music doesn't hold up, doesn't stand the test of time, like Alice in Chains and whatever, Pearl Jam and some of the Soundgarden stuff. He's like, it doesn't really, in Nirvana, it doesn't really stand the test of time. And I disagree with them. And especially in the AI age,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, like those bands were, in my opinion, and I was the right age too. I was
right,
like,
exactly.
That junior high school
Of
when
course.
that shit was coming out. So I'm like the target market for that. And I feel that, I mean, really starting in the mid to late 90s, everything started getting called grunge and alternative, whether it was or not. And grunge was a really annoying term to a lot of people that were into that type of music, because it was such like a corporate label that they slapped onto it, so that most people who didn't really know, they would just lump everything into that category. And it became a caricature of itself. And then at some point, everyone was like, well, I'm an alternative. I'm indie.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden indie, which was once a legit thing, like independent labels.
Yeah.
They weren't on these huge labels, and they were making music that was not compromising and not, made for commercial mass consumption. And then it just became a thing that all of a sudden, I don't know, like, for example, like bands like Coldplay were coming out and ripping off of like Radiohead, and shamelessly, to the point where it bothered me. And, and most people back when Coldplay was coming out, Coldplay was a joke.
Yeah.
Even though now it's funny, because
They're
wonder,
huge.
they're huge. Exactly. It's like, oh my God, this joke band is huge. And whatever, I guess, just if you fully cross over and are just truly pop music with nothing really else other to you than your pop music, which is really, I guess, what most people like hip hop and pop. And I mean, I basically call hip hop, because ever since the 90s, it's hip hop has not been an underground thing. Not saying there isn't underground hip hop artists, but it became just like the dominant music, like in a way that grunge and alternative did, and indie did, and it just was no longer grunge or alternative or indie. It was just stupid labels. But I guess to me, it's like if you listen to whatever, Nirvana or Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, which honestly, I think all three of those bands are great. Whether they're everyone's cup of tea or not, that's a subjective story.
Right.
And but then bands like Creed came out, that shamelessly ripped off of this shit.
Yeah.
And the younger people were getting into it, and someone like me was like, this is crap, or Linkin Park is crap, or Blink 182 is crap, and Rancid is crap. Like, these are all such, bandwagon, Johnny come lately, like, hey, there's nothing unique or visionary about it. It's just taking a proven formula and glossing it up and commercializing it more, and taking out the soul and the suffering and turning it into this finally, this refined piece of, commercial asset.
Right.
And it's just interesting because, that the idea of selling out was a big deal for me growing up, and you didn't want to sell out and become part of this corporate machine. But then now the idea of selling out, the youngins, as far as I can tell, that's not a big deal. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's like, no, you're trying to sell out. You want to sell out.
If that means being successful or something.
Right. And to us, selling out was you're compromising something to become successful and make money. And that's the opposite of real art and real integrity. And don't let this corporate machine come and swallow you up and spit you out as this, thing that destroys and replaces the great thing with, what I like to say is like we've taken your gourmet coffee and replaced it with Folgers crystals,
Yeah.
And the AI thing, to bring it back to the AI thing, I just think it's interesting because that song that you were just playing, I really like it. I think it's really cool. If we find out it's AI, and that whether it is or isn't, but if we found out it was, that would influence my opinion of it.
Right, sure.
Right. And I just think at some point in 10 or 20 years or however long, there's going to be a younger generation and they're going to be all into it, feeling no difference between this, that, or Linkin Park or Creed and Soundgarden or whatever, and think it's all the same, and even think Creed and Linkin Park are better than the originals, and think the AI is better than the originals. And people like us are going to be like, no, you don't get it. And they're like, you're just old fuddy-duddies or something.
Sure.
And or even like that we're bigots, that we're right, because it'll be one. Don't you see how in our lifetimes this will be? I like that person that's a real human being playing that song. You can hear the humanity in their voice, and the young people are going to say, "What are you talking about, Grandpa? Crazy uncle? It sounds the same to me. This AI Nirvana or this." This AI Velvet Underground is just as good as the real Velvet Underground. And it's going to be the most sacrilegious thing.
Yeah.
Just like if it was like Siddhartha by Starbucks.
Right.
And we'll be like, no, stay away from that, children. This is going to corrupt and rot your brain. And they're going to say, oh, shut up, crazy uncle, grandpa. And not, I mean, more so you guys are some sort of bigot. You're even worse. Not only an old person, you're a bigot for being prejudiced against
any kind of music.
Or this AI, the specific thing that, because at some point that's where the transhumanism thing is going to go, that these hybrid kind of cyborg things are going to, people are going to have the chips implanted, the Neuralink and whatever the next Neuralinks are. And then they're going to be like, what's the square root of 33,928.376? And then they'll just be like, quickly rattle it off. And it's like, yeah, well, I can do that if you give me a fucking calculator too. It's not just the idea of like the steroids in baseball. When it's like, at some point, like Barry Bonds was hitting 73 home runs. And by that point, people were like, remember like in the next season? Or next season or two, like every team just intentionally walked him because we're like, fuck this.
Screw this.
Yeah, we're not letting this guy pad these stats. And he kept on being like, I'm not taking steroids. Like, dude, your head is the size of like a baseball field. Like we have the footage of you when you were in the league and you were an amazing player. You were hitting 30 home runs, stealing 30 to 40 bases when you were my size.
Right.
Now you're like the size of fucking Hulk Hogan. Suddenly out of nowhere, along with everyone else. And then, you know what I'm saying? And so there's this whole thing of like this replacing the real thing with this phony thing. And that there will be a small grouping of people that try to keep it real and say, no, we're not going to lay down for this. And the rest are going to be like, shut up, old fuddy-duddy, crazy uncle, grandpa, bigot, racist. because at some point we're gonna get called that, like, oh, like almost everything's gonna be AI, and we're gonna be like, no, but we're producing stuff that's not AI,
Yeah.
and maybe we'll have a little niche market of people who don't want the AI
Right,
shit. You know
right,
what I'm
right.
saying?
Yeah.
It's just such an interesting thing, and how I'm listening to the same song that you played me, and and if it's, I'm just aware that there is something that we usually call bigotry, but I just think it's a fascinating conversation or idea to think about, because most everyone now is just, we call it AI slop,
Right.
right? And that's our way of doing it. And then at some point they're going to be like, hey, look, we have this footage of you calling it AI slop.
Mhm.
That's like, when Ted Danson wore blackface, and now
Yeah.
he's canceled.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or when Frank Zappa wore blackface on the cover of his album, and none of us are, and the smarter ones of us are like, dude, Zappa's not a racist.
Right.
Like that was him, using humor and some shock value and being ridiculous. Or Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder.
Sure.
But now we have to be like, of course, this is terrible.
Uh-huh.
And of course, this should not happen. And of course, we're all terrible human beings.
Uh-huh.
We have to bend a knee to the conformity.
No
of
more laughter.
Yeah, no more laughter. Yeah. Things to think about and consider,
Right. Well, and the only two things I've got to add are, I wonder how long they have been using AI,
right?
or AI type, because I know like before there was quote unquote AI, I remember watching some famous producer or musician or something, and he was showing his drumming software and how awesome it was, and how it could create these beats that you couldn't tell weren't a human. And so I think there's been so many of those tools, and I wonder for how long they've been kind of used without us realizing it, in terms of just the production of music. And then second part is the idea in Three Body Problem, where the AI tools, that because the advanced society called the Trisolarans already have this technology, that as we develop and start using the same AI technology, our cultures become indistinguishable because of the art. Because
you mean of the cultures
music
between the humans and the Trisolarans?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That basically, because of the technology, and then because of just kind of how cultures do end up sharing art forms, that basically as as we know about their military force coming here to take over the earth, we start trading cultural art back and forth between the underlying cultures. So the military isn't doing it, but humans here and the Trisolarans there start trading art. And so we start falling in love with their art, they start falling in love with our art, and then then the boundaries between them start to get blurry, such that by the time they get here, the military side gets here, our cultures are basically the same now.
Interesting. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
That's fascinating.
So yeah, that's the two things I had to add with the idea of kind of AI and the future.
Yeah, and the future. FUTA, future. Yeah, no, that's super interesting about the Three Body Problem, because that's in a way in some ways seems like kind of what's going on in some ways now.
Well, you've got like Iran using the AI to make a Lego movie about Trump and stuff. So yeah, and it gets a really good response, because because I go, oh, I know that. I've seen the Lego movie. Like I know that. So I'm way more willing to watch it than, I don't know, a radio broadcast or something. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with something super old school. Like if Iran were broadcasting on some AM radio station, I'm not going to listen to that.
Right.
I mean, I might if it gets like posted on Reddit or something like that, but like, once I even heard that Iran had released another Lego movie short, I had to go see it. Like, I gotta see this. I got to, right? So I can see I can see how it's super effective.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's because you speak the language, the insider, like the secret handshake of the sorts, and so you open or spread the legs, or open the mind of someone that otherwise would be closed to it, in a similar way that, say, hypnosis. You good luck at hypnotizing someone if they're dead set against being hypnotized.
Right.
You're just not going to do it.
Exactly right.
And so this just greases the runway or the doorway to injecting your idea into, or getting them to be willing to be hypnotized, where before they were not going to even be open to it at all. And it does seem in a way that, and I do assume that AI has been around and been in use for longer than we realize. And it didn't just happen as recently as many think.
Well, maybe it's making all these decisions.
Absolutely. I think that we need to consider that, especially considering so much institutional investing is done by either AI or these high quant computer algorithm bullshit, and that it can beat the best chess masters, in a faster, sooner than they had originally anticipated, and that the human mind struggles to understand exponential growth or change, and we think things happen and change at a certain pace, and if there's too big of a leap, it might be hard for us to wrap our minds around and make sense of.
Well, yeah, absolutely right. Well, and you don't want that if you're a business person either. You want the status quo essentially maintained and development to be done on a quarterly basis,
Right. Yeah, you want it to be done and delivered and received at the rate or pace that is desired.
Yes. meaning what's the most profitable?
yeah
which schedule will make us the most profitable?
yeah And it's interesting because I don't know if I sent it to you, but I don't think I did, but that guy Simon Dixon that I've sent you before, he just did an interview with this guy named David Collum. I don't know if you ever heard of that guy. He's like David Collum is kind of, I don't know, I guess you call him like a conservative, but he's someone that I don't know. He's like an older guy. My guess would be would be like 80 years old. And I saw him, and he's someone that I don't know, in the same way that, there's a whole movement of, just like on the left, you have the Chomsky and the Chris Hedges and the Cornell West, were the people that were, these standard bearers of leftist intellectual criticisms, that they weren't really going to be invited on to MSNBC and CNN. And people like David Collum are, probably like the counterpart of that, from more the right wing where they're not going to be on Fox News, because they're not going to toe the establishment line. Anyway, it was interesting because just a few days before that, I watched an interview with David Collum where he was asked about Simon Dixon, and he was basically saying, he's like, you know what? He was like, Simon Dixon is very much on my radar now, and I'm coming to appreciate his analysis and thoughts on things. And then literally like a day or two later, they got David Collum and Simon Dixon to have a discussion / debate.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost reminded me in certain ways of if me and my dad had a discussion or debate, except both of the people, David Collum and Simon Dixon, are, I don't know, I'd say a little bit smarter or more well informed than me and my dad. So and David Collum doesn't have the exact same, especially when it comes to like being a Zionist, because I don't think David Collum is a Zionist, but he's, of that generation where he, for example, is alarmed at the rise of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Which to me denotes, not saying that there isn't a rise in anti-Semitism, but that the people that are really alarmed by it are usually more the boomers.
Yeah.
And the children of boomers who imprinted their boomer parents' paranoias and fears and worldview.
Yeah.
And again, not to say that there isn't an uptick in it, as much as to say that's being used and weaponized and hyper focused on and in a way that it's right wing woke, whereas the left wing woke was like, oh my God, the racism against blacks and gays, and and it was like, oh my God, it's like, wait, this is in 2020, and obviously there's still racism, but come on, this is not nearly as bad as it once was, not all that long ago. And the people that were like, no, it's worse than ever, just trying to scare the shit out of you to mobilize. Everyone needs a common enemy to mobilize behind.
Yeah.
So that they all come together under the same flag. And I'm just saying, this guy, he like brought stuff up like that. And it was just very interesting to hear them discuss because, they talk about 9/11 and Simon Dixon's like, look, this was pretty clearly, U.S., Israel, Saudi, British, which to me is, and I guess this is a bigger picture thing that I would like to talk about is it does very much to me feel like an empire that outsources conveniently and intelligently, outsources and compartmentalizes aspects of operations to different parts in different countries and nation states, so that, let's say 9/11, to me it's pretty clear that Israeli, Saudi, British, and US intelligence were behind it, and they all play different roles in 9/11. Yet it was presented to us as this is just about Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda. And if you try to investigate in America, what role might one of these other countries played in it, or our own country, you're going to be met with punishments and coercions and threats and be called names and marginalized. But there's only so much you can demand a Freedom of Information Act for whatever the FBI might have had on. But it's harder, can you do that for Israel or Saudi Arabia or, the United Kingdom? It's, what I'm saying? So you outsource and compartmentalize aspects of the operation so to prevent the truth ever, make it much more difficult for anyone to really get at the truth.
Yeah.
Because it's also spread out and compartmentalized by different and operationally carried out by different nation states, so that it's going to be really hard. I mean, it's really hard even if one country is the one that's all behind it. Say like the Charlie Kirk thing, when it's like we were told we were not allowed, we would be unable to investigate the role any other foreign country might have had in this. And we can look into anything that may be something domestically, but we're not going to be able to look into the role a foreign nation may or may not have played in this. And that would be a very clever strategy to prevent the truth from coming out, and making it so that these operations can go on, and making it so that limiting the ability to really investigate them. And so I just think that nation states are used in that manner on a global scale, in part to cover your ass, to make it so that it's going to be harder for anyone, just like the JFK assassination. It wasn't all just the CIA that did that.
Yeah.
Even though some people wanted to say, oh, that was the CIA. It's like, oh, well, they had a hand in it, but these other groups also had a hand in it.
There was like 5 groups playing rock, paper, scissors. Like,
yeah, exactly.
No, let me do it.
Yeah, exactly. So I do.
Are we best friends now?
Right.
Honestly, that probably did make some people, some groups, best friends that never would have, like, wait, you want him dead too?
Right?
Like, damn.
It's like, dude, we got to hang out sometime.
I didn't know you were like this.
Right? It's like, wait, you like that band too?
Yeah,
we
right.
Gotta hang out.
Wow.
This is great. I thought we hated each other, and I thought we would never have any common interests, but we got a lot of things more in common than I realized. You and I should hang out sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really think that Simon Dixon is, I don't know, he's become one of my favorite, thinkers or analysts on what may or may not be going on. And he ultimately puts out that, I mean, almost everything that we think is just kind of theater and narrative, which completely, to me, that tracks, but even, he even takes it to the place where he's like, the people that love Israel, the people that hate Israel, it's like, this Israel is a narrative in this. This is transnational capital making all these decisions and bargaining with the different relevant parties. And there you're gonna have some holdouts. And then, like he says, like the IRGC is one of the holdouts, and they're like, no, fuck this, we're not playing this game. And so that's one of the challenges. He argues that this conflict is like already largely over, not in the way that Trump is saying, but that there have mostly been negotiations that have been mostly agreed upon, and that they've already achieved most of their objectives from a global standpoint. And this is a transition, or the great reset, towards the new world order of a multipolar reality, where which very much lines up with the kind of Carol Quigley Tragedy and Hope idea of the Cecil Rhodes roundtable groups and the Milner roundtable groups that wanted to, separate the world into these 3 blocks, or as now some are talking about the technates, right? And all of these things kind of rhyme, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And all of these things are follow the rhymes, follow the money, follow the rhymes. And there does seem to be some sort of order that's emerging. and just how, in a way, I feel like MAGA was a way to rally, or an attempt to rally, that whole militia movement and the liberty movement. The people that were not going to go quietly with the New World Order. Whereas most the centrists they're already on board. The Democrats and the Republicans are all in on the New World Order. They don't, it's all empire and slavery. They just have to, the Democrats got to sell it to the people that identify as liberal.
Right.
And the Republicans got to package it to the people that identify as conservative, but they're selling the same fucking products. But, they're like focusing on how this one, like, here, they're not going to take our jobs. And that one, how we're going to protect every, minority, and whatever, whatever the fuck you idiots want. We just got to figure out what you want to hear, and then we'll tell it to you.
Right.
And that's why it's like, shit. Everything that by the time it comes to us in corporate narratives, it's been so thoroughly chewed on and digested and spit out, kind of like it's all Coldplay and Linkin Park by the time it comes to us. None of it is any Nirvana or Velvet Underground or Frank Zappa. It's just AI slop. And it's like, whatever, this has already been decided on. This is all narrative to manufacture consent from all of you, the masses, so that most of you will go along with it, and some of you that don't like it will create QAnon, or we'll create Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ, and then you'll go all in. Or climate change, or whatever, or these things that will protect you, and these are the threats, and we'll all rally together and stop these threats. And meanwhile, or like what Israel did to the Jews, how it was like, that's right, like, you all better get with us, because if you don't get with us, you're all fucked, and the world's out to get us. They always have. And like, look at the Holocaust. And it's like, how about we, like, if you consider the Jack Cruz perspective on the Holocaust, it's like, wait a second, this is interesting. This is, and this tracks, because, you have these quotes by, like, David Ben-Gurion, one of the, like, saying, it's like these disgusting quotes where it's like, why would this guy say this shit? Where he's like, if I could have saved all of the Jews and have them go back to, like,
I remember,
London or England, like, or let half of them die and the other half come to Israel, I would, only save the half that'll come to Israel. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, that's some Nazi-like shit.
Yeah.
But my dad, he's just like, will put his fingers in his ears and be like, I'm not listening. And it like that, it bothers me, because I'm like, hey, okay, so you're not into the truth. That's not your priority. Okay, I guess I can get over that. Even though then I don't think of you as a peer, and because ultimately I'm, as a flawed human being myself, I'm still attempting to go after or find something closer to the truth, even though that's a really fucking hard thing to do. But my dad, he doesn't, like, I'd want to say to him, like, all right, so if you were to find out that Jack Cruz's explanation of what the Holocaust might have really been, which in part was, which is corroborated somewhat by Netanyahu when he goes around saying Hitler didn't want to kill the Jews, he just wanted them to leave Germany. Which is basically what Jack Cruz is saying. It's like Netanyahu is corroborating or at least part of the thesis of what Jack Cruz is saying.
Right.
And if that's true, like, would that influence how you viewed it at all? And my dad would just be like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. Because emotionally, he's too married to this narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we get it because it's trauma-based mind control. And he was born 2 years after the end of the Holocaust. And I can't really blame him for feeling that way.
Yeah.
But you and I, we departed from, once we started finding out about 9/11, we were like, okay, we'll look into this.
Right.
And we looked into it. We're like, oh my God, we don't know exactly what happened, but it's not what we were told.
Right.
And that's pretty fucking obvious.
Yeah.
And unless they start telling us some more truth, then why the fuck should I trust them at all?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you fast forward and you got people like Brett Weinstein, you get people like Michael Shellenberger, you get people like Matt Taibbi and Michael Tracy, these people that, during, like, with Russiagate, with the 2007, like the subprime mortgage collapse, like WMDs, COVID, people that developed a certain reputation as integrity, investigative journalists with integrity, and look, I think Brett Weinstein's different than the rest of those guys, or has proven himself, because the rest of the guys are, I don't know, they're just like doing the devil's work, in my opinion, at this point. I don't know if you saw the clip of Rogan had Shellenberger on.
No.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just and again, it's like Shellenberger, Taibbi, Michael Tracy. These guys, they developed a certain amount of credibility during COVID and a little bit before COVID, because they kind of helped debunk Russiagate. They helped debunk or question aspects of climate alarmism.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and Brett Weinstein helped really debunk a lot of COVID stuff, even though, not all of it, not from the beginning, because he was wrong about some stuff at the beginning. And a lot of people, they don't forget about that.
Yeah.
But I think if you watch the Kurt Metzger on Danny Jones interview, when he's talking about Brett Weinstein, and he's like, hey, I learned X, Y, and Z from Brett Weinstein during COVID, and I'm grateful for that. But that being said, Brett Weinstein is a nerd. And he's like, and I think, I actually do think it was kind of relevant and insightful that he's like, look, these nerds, they're in their own little bubble, just like anyone who's not a nerd, they're in their own non-nerd bubble.
Right.
But the nerd is just gonna see the world at least influenced by their subjective lens.
Mm-hmm.
And even though Brett Weinstein, which we didn't talk about his Danny Jones last time, which I probably because I didn't shut the fuck up. but I mean, I still like Brett Weinstein, but I do, something about it. It feels like he's either wittingly or unwittingly used as damage control, to be like, there are nerds on top of this that are on the right side and that are looking out and trying to help us, but then but then when that nerd goes out and, and when Whitney Webb is at the beginning of Trump's second term is saying, guys, don't fall for it.
Yeah.
Don't fall for it. And then Brett Weinstein's like, you're a black pillar. We're tired of you. You don't have credibility anyway. How are you an expert?
Right.
How are you qualified? You're just a black pillar here to ruin everyone's a good time. Just be a red pill, like guy Michael Malice says. You're supposed to take a red pill, not drink the whole bottle.
Right, right.
And it's like, look, they're not being black pilled. They're just like, don't fall for the hopium.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the mechanisms used to control people and to keep people from really getting at the truth. And like there's a lot of people that hate Tucker Carlson because they're like, he would have on members of Trump's cabinet and hold their feet to the fire.
Yeah.
And there were people that were getting angry at Tucker Carlson in a similar way that Brett Weinstein was getting angry at Whitney Webb. And they were like, wait, you helped usher these people in, and now you're going to hold their feet to the fire and grill them? And it's basically, it's like, well, he should be.
You keep Whitney Webb out your mouth.
Yeah. You better take her out of your mouth. Yeah, it's just interesting, It's like the people that, like when Jimmy Dore grilled Cornell West, and then Cornell West is like, you're just a Trumper. And he was
wait,
like,
who is
what?
that? Wait, who is it again?
Cornell
West
and
who?
And Jimmy Dore.
Okay.
It was like a saddest victory lap for Jimmy Dore, because he used to be a big fan of Cornell West.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Cornell West is like, Trump is a fascist and Biden is just a milk toast neoliberal.
Mm.
And he's like, no, come on, stop with that bullshit. They're both fascists. Like, they both serve the same masters. Right? Like, just stop with this. Stop running cover for the Democrats already. Like, once you're showing, you're revealing that you have been, co-opted. And shit came out later that Cornel West has money problems and tax problems. It's just like the Alex Jones shit, where they're going to catch you for something, they're going to bust you. And then now it's like, look, either we're going to fuck you up your life and destroy your life, or, on occasion we're going to give you a little signal and you come out and, like probably what Matt Taibbi and Michael Tracy are doing, with or Michael Shellenberger, who for a long time were like going out there and be like, oh, wow, look, we're getting some nerds on our side. We're getting the people that are like, did you dot every I and cross every T?
Yeah.
And really there really has been a huge wide open career path for anyone to debunk what you call a quote unquote conspiracy theory. And that the whole media, or the majority of the mainstream media landscape, and where the big money and the incentives were for people who could debunk the conspiracy theories. And the reality is, it's really fucking hard to prove anything conclusively. It's like the hypnosis thing. The person has to be truly open to that hypnosis in order to get hypnotized. And if they're closed to it, they're just not going to get hypnotized. Good luck convincing a Holocaust denier that the Holocaust happened. And vice versa. That good luck convincing someone who's a true believer in the narratives of the Holocaust as that everything happened exactly that way, and if anything didn't happen exactly that way, then you're a Holocaust denier. And it's like, no, guys, it's like there is, like, science never gets settled. It's always
Correct.
this work in progress.
Always, yes.
And someone like Michael Tracy and Shellenberger and Matt Taibbi, there's a big wide open lane for them to be like, hey guys, all of these Epstein emails and stuff, they don't really conclusively prove anything. And it's going to be really hard to defeat them in that debate, because on some level they have a point, but it's a greater point that can be said about the Holocaust and World War I, or anything that we say, no, this 100% happened, and it happened the way they said it happened. And that's why I think it brings us to this greater question of, like, I don't know that we've ever had the ability to know what's real and what's not. And the scientific process was an attempt to test and verify whether something was legit or not. And history is just something that's really fucking difficult. It's just it's a battle of narratives, more than a battle of facts. And Mike Tyson will just beat the shit out of a 5-year-old, and there's no two ways about it. But it was presented to us like, no, there's facts, and then there's speculation.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cult of false certainty. The cult of false certainty. And we can't prove our way out of much of anything. The people that think the COVID vaccine is what ended the pandemic and saved millions of lives, like, good luck convincing them otherwise. Like when you wanted to like try to convince your mom that maybe she shouldn't take the shot, like, good luck. Good luck.
No way.
It's just not happening.
Yeah.
You could show her this, that, and then she'll come back with 10 times as many sources that she respects. And all of them will agree with, oh, clearly I must keep getting the boosters.
Yeah.
Like when Brett Weinstein had a debate with that guy, Michael Shermer, that douchebag, Michael Shermer, the and they debate about COVID. And then in the debate, like, one of the big fatal blows was Brett Weinstein was like, okay, so if you're such a fan of the vaccine, let me ask you, did you get the latest booster? And Michael Shermer is like, no.
Did he say how come? Do you remember or no?
I don't remember
Okay.
his reasoning. But,
Interesting.
But he didn't get it, And then he's like, well, there you go. Or how RFK Jr. went on to Bill Maher's show, and Bill Maher, and they were talking about the vaccine and whether or not it was effective. And basically he was like, well, all of these things happened, because of the vaccine. And then Bill Maher was like, or it happened because of COVID. And he's like, well, if it happened because of COVID, then the vaccine didn't work. Because the vaccine was supposed to save you from the bad harms of COVID. But if it still happened anyway, then the vaccine didn't work. So you've just submitted in the debate.
Yeah.
And it was like this, whoa,
Yeah. That's a good comeback.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's one or the other one or something else.
Right? Yeah.
So make up your mind.
And either way, the vaccine didn't work. Either way. Because if you think it was COVID that did that, then, well, the vaccine was supposed to prevent COVID from hurting us in that way.
Right.
And it didn't. So, and yeah, I don't think Maher had much of a heat. That was when Maher was like, okay, let's talk about
on to the next topic.
Yeah. Yeah, like Joe Kent just did to that guy, that douchebag Mark Levine. Mark Levine thought he was going to have him about, you see, Iran is a threat and Israel is the best in the world. And then Kent, I know. And then Kent just like threw it back at him. And then Mark Levine's like, oh, you know what, we're going to go to commercial now. And we'll get back to this.
Yeah. Now we're out of time,
Yeah,
exactly. I'll have you on again next time.
Next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you want to call it here? I really got to pee.
Oh, you got to pee?
We got through all of our topics. I've got 10 different things over here. I don't know if anything else is on your mind. I just felt it.
Okay. I mean, we can call it if you're. I'm cool with either way. Yeah, I'm sorry I dominated. I just didn't shut the hell up.
Oh, that's great. I didn't have much. I was honestly worried today. I was like, man, I didn't have much to say. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I want to go over the shit that you sent and see what comes up. But like, I mean, we're already over an hour. I mean, we did awesome.
Yeah. I guess I just like wanted to, I don't know. I almost feel bad because I don't know. I want you to do your thing too more. And so, but if
I
you're
didn't
like,
have much
whatever,
today, man. I didn't have
Okay.
much today. Seriously. Sometimes I do.
Okay.
Because a lot of what's going on still feels like a continuation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Agreed.
You know, it's still the
Agreed.
Israel thing. It's still the Iran thing. It's, you know, it's okay. All right.
Yeah.
What's the next thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
We need some kind of, I really still think there has to be something really big that happens so that they can dump the market because they need an excuse. And I'm waiting on what that's going to be. And it seems like, I don't know. I don't have an opinion yet on, because there's obviously some of the most unbelievable insider trading happening in conjunction with the Trump administration. So they're getting, well, and I guess it could be coordinated. I guess I'll also be uncoordinated, where somehow they know they've bugged the the Oval Office or something, they're it seemed like, though, earlier in the year, Trump did his cover your ass kind of things with some of those Wall Street guys. He's like, yeah, we made a lot of money today. We made a lot of money, and it was because it was right after the crash. And then it's like all these pre-market or aftermarket moves. That's when these big announcements are happening. It's giving people time, if they know it's going to happen, to just make unbelievable amounts of money. That sounds like, and I remember reading something the other day, they're trying to sell like inside access to the administration anyway, where you can you give them a bunch of money and then they'll like clue you in on like what they're thinking. So yeah, I mean, the insider trading has just been insane. It's just so incredible.
Right, the pre-market on Monday morning.
Oh
he was like, "We've talked to Iran, we're having good talks," and then every person I listened to was like, "No, Iran denies this," but that wasn't stopping the market from churning up. And I was like, "What the hell?" And it was all based on this bullshit talking point. He said,
correct,
and then it was like, "But wait, all the people I listen to already know that Iran's denying this, and they're saying, no, we made no headway with talks. What is this? This is fake news." And then it took hours for that to finally hit the markets and things to drop again.
Exactly.
And I was like, what the hell? I was like, dude,
it didn't even like drop as much in response. You know what I'm saying? It's like totally. The initial move, whether it's up or down, is like super violent. And then later on, it's kind of like, oh, that didn't really happen. And then there's like maybe a slight change, but it's that first big move that you're trying to catch. If you know that first big move is coming, you can make just an absolute shit ton of money. Holy crap.
Right. Absolutely.
Anyway, I'm gonna go pee, bro.
Okay.
I will talk to you next time. Awesome as always. I'm glad you had shit to say today, man.
Okay.
And I had stuff going in the background here. Craner thing. I've got the Jimmy Dore thing going, and then there was one other thing that I was able to get the whole thing on. So I think we did a good job.
Okay, awesome.
Talk to you next time. Keep sending stuff. I'll keep sending stuff too.
Awesome, man. Great talking to you, Dogon.
You too.
Later, buddy.
Okay, later. Bye.